Number 10. Minos. Minos is a rather tragic demigod, the son of the ever-promiscuous Zeus and the Phoenician princess Europa. Minos ascended to the throne of the Greek island of Crete, where he would kinda struggle with his brother for power. In the legend, he prays to Zeus for a white bull as a sign of Zeus's approval of him being the ruler of Crete. Zeus sends him the bull with the intention of it being used in a sacrifice. But instead, Minos just finds the bull way too beautiful to take its life. Does he fall in love with the bull? No, he just thinks it's quite nice to look at. But the same could not be said for his lady. As punishment for not sacrificing the bull, Aphrodite makes Pasiphae, his wife, fall super madly in love with the beast, and, well, her and the bull make a little baby. A little baby with a man's body and a bull's head. The Minotaur. They make the Minotaur. More tragic than powerful, but he was a king, so look, I just wanted to tell the story, okay?
Number 9. Hercules. Hercules. He's probably the first demigod that comes to mind when thinking of demigods. Known for his massive strength and his adventures, he's the classic hero who the previous generation knows because of a very successful Disney movie, and Danny DeVito. Everybody loves Danny DeVito. God bless that man. The son of almighty powerful god Zeus, not Danny DeVito, Hercules, sometimes he's the father of Romulus and Remus. If vanilla ice cream was a myth, Hercules would be that. Because it's standard for everyone to know him and his 12 labors. Not because he's a delicious summertime treat that's both sweet and refreshing.
Number 8. Kukulane. We're going on a trip down Kukulane. Just kidding. It was a bad joke. Kukulane is actually a very well-known, powerful Irish mythological demigod. Son of the god Lugh, the Irish Achilles was the greatest warrior in Ireland, who was known to go into crazed battle rages called rastrad, which could be translated as warp spasms, where he would become almost beast-like and no one was safe. Speaking of beasts, Kukulane is actually a nickname given to the hero meaning Hound of Kulan, or Kulane, or however you pronounce it, after he de-lifed Kulane's guard dog and swore to act as his replacement guard dog until he found a replacement. That's a lot of replacing, which is quite noble of him. His real name was Saktana, which means one who has knowledge of roads and ways, which isn't really the kind of name that makes you think greatest warrior. He rode a chariot into battle, used a slingshot and possibly a spear-like thing, had a profound effect on women, and he was bound by magical taboos that he must always accept food any woman offers to him, and he must never eat the meat of a dog. Surprise, the two intersect to bring his downfall, because of course they do.
Number 7. The Battle of Hidespus. This battle was fought between Alexander the Great and King Porus in 326 BC. These guys scrapped hard. The fourth and the last battle in the conquest of Asia for Alex. Yeah, this one took a toll on him. It took place on the banks of the Hidespus River in India, subcontinent modern-day Pakistan. The battle resulted in a Greek victory after the surrender of Porus. Scraping by, it seems. Yeah, after conquering the Persian Empire, Alexander got cocky and thought he could just waltz into northern India without a fight. The forces were pretty even too. Alexander had more cavalry, but Porus had his secret weapons as well. 200 war elephants. That's the most badass thing I've ever heard. Imagine seeing a giant walking tank with tusks just chucking bodies and horses out into the sky. There's literally nothing more intimidating. No wonder Alexander barely won. When asked by Alexander how he wished to be treated, Porus said, as a king would treat another king. Impressed, Alex, now king, allowed him to retain some of Porus's land. He renamed 2 cities, however, one called Nicaea, Greek for victory, and one after his horse. Yeah, talk about salt in the wound, dude. Number 6. Cannae. The Battle of Cannae was a key move in the Second Punic War between the Roman Republic and Carthage, fought on August 2nd, 216 BC near the ancient village of Cannae. The Carthaginians and their allies, led by our hero Hannibal, not Hannibal Lecter, just Hannibal. One name. Well, he surrounded and practically annihilated the superior Roman and Italian army. It's known as one of the greatest tactical feats in military history, equally one of the most embarrassing by the Romans. I mean, the Romans were good. Literally a walking tank with shields and spears. They were practically unbeatable. But they rushed into Cannae and Hannibal flanked the shit out of them. Yeah, him and a stew of about 50,000 rebel towns and cities trapping the Roman army inside the city, who were then annihilated. Only about 15,000 Romans. Not a huge loss, but back at home, they were starting to panic, and the Romans started doing anything and everything they could to rebuild an army. It's forever known as a legendary and almost divine feat. Number 5. Hastings. The Battle of Hastings was fought on October 14, 1066 between the Norman-French army of William Duke of Normandy and the English army under the Anglo-Saxon king Harold Godwinson. It took place approximately northwest of Hastings, which is present-day Sussex. A decisive yet Norman victory. The English army was almost all infantry and had few archers, whereas the French were an even half and half. The Normans did this really funny tactic where they'd pretend to flee in panic and then turn around and flank their pursuers. It worked every time. Most of the blame for the defeat lies in the structure of the battle. William was a more experienced military leader. He liked structure. Basically, when Harold heard that William had landed in England, he rushed south instead of taking his time to build a strong and large army. The English played offense way too much and got broken to bits. Harold's death led to the retreat and defeat of the English army. William was crowned as king on Christmas Day 1066. Number 4. Bannockburn. King of the Scots Robert the Bruce versus King Edward II of England. June 23, 1314. The First War of Scottish Independence. The infamous battle between Scotland and England was one of the most important battles of the Middle Ages. The end of a bloody war for independence. Long story short, Scots were like, yeah, we're gonna stay here and just continue to roll our R's. The gruesome wooden wars were caused by the English invading Scotland in 1296. Basically, he was like, bow and say I'm king, or good night. Well, a young warrior, William Wallace, guardian of King of Scotland himself, didn't really like that idea too much, and instead decided to hold off the English forces and was knighted a hero of Scotland. Although the bloody battle wasn't the end, it was definitely the most significant. Unfortunately, like every hero back then, he was also someone's villain. William was captured, hanged, drawn, and quartered. The battles between Scotland and England ended in 1328, 14 years later, with Robert the Bruce securing Scotland's independence and adding like 34 more dialects to the UK. Freedom!
Number 3. Achilles. Okay, I promise no more movie references this time. Just straight up Achilles and some Greek dudes duking it out. Achilles was the greatest of all warriors during the Trojan War and vanquished Hector outside the city gates. It was said that he was invincible except for his heel, after his mother dipped him in the river Styx to grant him invulnerability. During the end of the war, an arrow to the heel was enough to end poor Achilles, hence the common expression Achilles' heel. A small weakness in a rather strong thing, like the Death Star's porthole, Voldemort's Horcruxes, or Superman's kryptonite. Now, because I haven't asked in a while, what is your Achilles heel? Let us know in the comments below, I'm curious. Mine's McDonald's, just saying. Just this.
Number 2. Romulus and Remus. How does the power of founding one of the world's best known and most powerful historical empires sound? Romulus and Remus were twin demigods and the supposed founders of the city of Rome in Italy. They started it all, but the question of who started them is a bit more ambiguous. We know their mother was Rhea Silvia, who was a direct descendant of Aeneas, a Trojan prince and son of Venus, or Aphrodite. But their father, in some myths, has been the god Mars, or Ares, and in other myths, it was that guy Hercules. Either way, Rhea Silvia was a Vestal virgin, and as such, she had to be punished for breaking her vow of celibacy, even if it was not her fault even in the slightest. Luckily, she was imprisoned instead to avoid the wrath of the gods, and her sons were ordered to be put into the wilds or thrown into the Tiber River. The servant carrying out the sentence takes pity on them and puts them in a basket in the Tiber River instead. Yeah, way better. After drinking some she-wolf milk, becoming shepherds, fighting a king, and then fighting over where their new city should be founded, Romulus came out on top with his brother meeting the afterlife after mocking the city walls Romulus had created. And it just gets wilder from there, but I've already been talking too much, so...
Number 1. Imhotep, the one who comes in peace. Before I start, usually when someone says they're gonna come in peace, it really means they're here to upset the apple cart. Hernan Cortez, Christopher Columbus, and Buzz Lightyear. They all said they came in peace, but Woody, that was Andy's toy, Buzz. You ruined everything. All jokes aside, Imhotep is pretty cool because, well, he may be the only dude on this list that maybe actually existed. Pharaohs were seen as gods, or at least the next god, or something like that. Well, this demigod is credited for his first design of the Egyptian pyramids, which is pretty important for ancient Egypt. It's kind of like their identity. This guy is kind of like the Johnny Sins of Egypt. He was a pharaoh, an architect, and apparently also the top doctor of the time. No wonder he was treated like a god. The man could build you a tomb, heal you, and rule over you at the same time. pretty sick.
Number 10, the dedication of Clavia. You know what you shouldn't do as a teacher? Make a student who is really talented self-sabotage themselves so they don't beat out another kid, which is exactly what happened to Clavia. Clavia was a very talented young boy who lived deep in the forest among his tribe. He wanted to become the best archer in the world, and he was very well on his way to becoming it. However, when he asked to become a student of the great Drona, he was denied due to his poor social standing. But Clavia was not deterred. He built a statue of his idol instead and let it inspire him as he practiced archery every day. He became so skilled that when Drona learned of this, he was afraid he would surpass his best student, Arjuna. So he demanded Clavia payment for studying under him, even though it wasn't technically under him, in the form of his right thumb. Then, sadly, this story doesn't really have a happy ending. The boy cut off his thumb right there and then, forfeiting his dreams of becoming the best in the biz. So overall, work hard to get where you want to, and then give over to jealousy and let someone cut your thumb off so that you'll never achieve it. Number 9, Monashwa. Confusing and terrifying? We love a little bit of everything here on Bumblebee, which is why I bring you Monashwa, a terrifying creature slash demon that delights in scratching the faces off its victims, a very specific thing, leaving them for dead. No one quite knows what it looks like, but the most common description is a hairy spider with soulless eyes. Spiders already have soulless eyes, I hate them. They are known for attacking only at night and sometimes cause strange blackouts before they attack. Now, many believed for a long time that it was simply the stuff of legend, a scary bedtime story told to make sure children behave. But in the early 2000s, the town of Kanpur, India blamed several attacks on the creature. Several people reported attacks at night and awoke with strange abrasions on their faces. Even more mysteriously, the victims entirely blacked out on the events leading up to it. Police as well as civilians became so convinced that it was real and it was attacking their community that they led special searches at night. But then, almost as soon as they had begun, the attacks stopped, leaving behind yet another legend of a bedtime story becoming real. Number 8, the devotion of Stardust. Genuine question for all of you. If you saw the most beautiful thing, place, person in the world and knew that nothing else would ever be as perfect, would you wish to keep your sight or have your sight taken away because nothing would ever come close to it? Personally, I'd probably keep my sight because you never know. But Stardust was so devoted to Lord Krishna that he had his sight taken away again. He loved Krishna so much that he wrote song after song in his praise. Stardust was a blind man but had a heart for music. One day Stardust fell into a well and Krishna saved him. Radha, his companion, became jealous and against Krishna's orders saying to stay away from him, she went to him anyways. As she passed, Stardust clutched onto her anklets. When he wouldn't let go, she revealed herself, but Stardust couldn't confirm her identity, so he held on. Krishna then graced him with vision and let go of the anklets. He was so stunned at having finally seen his hero that he asked to be blind again as nothing would ever come close to it. My question is, if he was blind since birth, how would he even know what Radha looked like to identify her? Would he just have been overwhelmed by her amazing goddessness? I don't know.
Number 7, Perseus. Before there was Hercules, there was Perseus. This is actually one of my favorite stories from Greek mythology. Basically, Perseus was the slayer of beasts. He was tasked with slaying the evil Gorgon Medusa, and in case you didn't know, that was the lady with snakes for hair, and she could also turn a man to stone with one evil gaze. No thank you. Perseus makes a big brain move. He acquires a mirror shield, not exactly like the one from Legend of Zelda, but close enough that I'm gonna make the pop culture reference. Sadly, he used the shield to sneak up on her and remove her sneaky head from her human body. I like to think it was closer to Zelda where you're like reflecting fire and ice back with the witch ladies, but regardless, he was successful in his endeavors and he gifted the head to Athena, where it was then turned into a more powerful shield. Lots of shield trading going on. I like that, it's nice.
Number 6, Gilgamesh, the 5th king of the ancient Sumerian city of Uruk. Gilgamesh reigned around 2500 BC for, according to the Sumerian list of kings, 126 years. Which may surprise you when I tell you it is not common among the ancient people of Mesopotamia, assuming it's true. In Mesopotamian legend, he is said to be a demigod composed of 2 parts god, 1 part man, just like Grandma's favorite cookies. Unlike her cookies, he had super strength that he used to create the walls of Uruk. In the myth, he goes off to seek Utnapishtim, who I'm just going to refer to as Tim. He seeks Tim in order to find the secret to eternal life. Tim turns out to just be a dude and doesn't actually have the secret because, hate to break it to you buddy, we all meet our ends eventually. And now I'm getting philosophical, let's move on. Okay.
Number 5, Maui. Another one made famous by a Disney movie, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say we don't see enough of Polynesian culture. It's really cool to me. We should see more of it. Anyway, Maui, the big bad demigod played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, is something I didn't know about before Moana. Solid movie. Maui is described as being the trickster, similar to Loki. It's said he also possesses a big fishing hook called Kalani. It's close enough. It's also said that during a fishing trip with his brothers, after some trickery and pulling with the hook, he created the Hawaiian Islands. The best I ever did when fishing was drink too many beers and lose worms on hooks. I'm not a very good fisherman.
Number 4, Sleipnir. Not every demigod had to be part human, and Sleipnir is one of those few that aren't. Sleipnir is actually a horse, and not just any horse. He is the 8-legged son of Loki, who turned into a mare and was impregnated by a stallion. And he is the mythical steed to Odin. Best of all horses, just as Odin is the best of all Aesir, he always appears at the top of any list of the gods' horses, and he allows his rider to travel all over the 9 realms and even the realm of the dead, which is part of the reason for his name, which means sliding one. He wasn't just ridden by Odin. The brother of Balder, Homerdir, also rode Sleipnir to the realm of Hell and back safely. Sleipnir's final ride is to carry Odin to the battlefield of Vigrid at Ragnarok, where they are both felled. Then Sleipnir carries Odin to the afterlife. What a good horse. The best horse, some could say.
Number 3, Raktabisia. This dude seriously sounds terrifying, and I don't know how anybody beat him, but they had to create a whole god to get rid of him. Raktabisia wasn't just one demon in Indian mythology, he could simultaneously be hundreds, thousands, millions. If one drop of his blood hit the ground, another Raktabisia would form, and worse than that, the creature would actually get more powerful when a new version of himself was formed. It was like a huge narcissistic thing. I'm not sure how that works, especially since he's only a tiny baby part. Like, whoa, I'm so powerful. As you can imagine, he was incredibly difficult to defeat. Every time he spilled blood, it was like, whoa, there's more of you. So the gods combined all of their power and created Kali, the destroyer of demons. A grotesque looking goddess decorated with bloody limbs. You know the one, the lady with the multiple arms dancing about. Yeah, an equally fierce demon to face Raktabisia. During their battle, of course, his blood poured onto the ground from his wounds, creating thousands of demons. But instead of letting the blood drop to the floor, Kali pierced him and drank all of the blood so not a single drop would hit the floor. And that was how she destroyed him. Kind of like the OG battle vampire. Number 2, Putana. It takes some guts to take on the dude who was literally born to destroy you, but Putana thought she could do it. Putana was an evil demon who was passionate about taking the lives of the young. Needless to say, not someone you want at a daycare. When baby Krishna was born, it was foretold that he would destroy all the demons. Literally his job. So Putana thought she could take the guy out early. She disguised herself as a beautiful young woman, laced her breast with poison and entered his room. Because of her disguise, nobody thought twice, and so she sat down to feed the babe. But unfortunately for her, she made a huge mistake. Krishna was born to destroy demons, never mind the poison, and as he fed from her, he sucked her life away instead. Putana died in absolute agony, and Krishna assured everyone that he was here to do one thing and one thing only: his job. And last but not least, number 1, Mahisha Sura. Look, I can understand appreciating the beauty of an animal, but when bestiality is thrown into the mix, we gotta pull the reins on that. I know Zeus from Greek mythology was all about that as well. It just seems to be a thing that gods like to do across the world. It's a global thing. Remember the King of Demons? Well, this was another demon king who was the son of the King of Demons, but not the one previously mentioned. But anyways, his mother was a buffalo. His father had fallen in love with the beauty of a buffalo and married her. Mahisha means buffalo and Asura means demon in Hindi, therefore buffalo demon. No man on this planet could kill him, and he was a very confident dude. He started a war with the people and won. His power knew no bounds because of course what man could kill him? However, there was a catch. A man couldn't kill him, but a woman could. But what woman could kill someone so strong? So the gods created the goddess Durga, and she waged war on the tyrant, finally fulfilling the prophecy. Boy oh boy, do I love a loophole. Starting off with some geography, we got Lake Nyos. How can a lake kill 1,700 people? Well, though it sounds too insane to be true, it did indeed happen. Located in West Africa, the lake itself is deceptively beautiful. However, on August 21st, 1986, a mysterious cloud burst from the lake. It flooded towards the village and suffocated 1,700 people and animals. Nothing survived the event. The reason this happened is because beneath the water there is a pocket of magma that leaks carbon dioxide into the lake. The CO2 stays dissolved in the water due to the pressure of the 650 feet of water on top of the magma secretions. Crazy, so kind of like a pop bottle with an invisible lid. Until one day, that lid popped. On that day, the lake abruptly depressurized and the CO2 exploded into the air, causing the devastating event. Today, pipes are used to siphon the CO2 out from the bottom of the lake in order to prevent this from happening again, but imagine when it did happen, it must have felt like some kind of magical grim occurrence. For sure. Number 9, the Salem Witch Trials. If you follow me on MA, you just know how much I hate the Salem Witch Trials. I hate them so much, okay? It's an event in history that is so inconceivably stupid, it's hard to believe it actually happened. The Salem Witch Trials occurred in Massachusetts between 1692 and 1693, where more than 200 people were accused of witchcraft and 20 were put to death. It all started because the daughter of Reverend Paris, Elizabeth, who was 9, and his niece, Abigail Williams, same age, started having fits. Another girl, Ann Putnam, age 11, started having them as well. The supernatural was blamed and soon the girls began accusing everyone they could, mostly people the town didn't like. Basically, if you confessed and you wanted to be saved, then you weren't executed, but if you were accused and didn't confess, you were killed. The paranoia was so bad that once you were accused, you couldn't escape this guilt they put on you. It was insane. But after the paranoia finally subsided, the colony admitted that they probably made a mistake and compensated the families. Like, yeah, oops, might have gotten a little carried away there. Wow, whew, I got excited, sorry guys. Here's some money. The Salem Witch Trials today represent what happens when paranoia rules a courtroom and the whole thing still beguiles the world even 300 years later. Number 8. Unsinkable Sam. On a happier note, this is the kind of story that makes people believe that cats have 9 lives. Unsinkable Sam was the nickname for a cat who survived several shipwrecks during World War II. His tale begins aboard a German warship called the Bismarck. Among the 2,200 soldiers was a black and white cat that somehow snuck aboard. One day, the Bismarck was decimated during an attack, and while the HMS Cossack was looking for survivors, they saw Oscar the cat, name of the time, seeking refuge on a plank, like Jack from the Titanic. They hauled him aboard, but then several months later, the Cossack would be decimated. That's shipwreck number 2. This time, it was the HMS Ark Royale who spotted him and was then dubbed the name Unsinkable Sam. And then, shipwreck number 3, months later, as you can guess, the Royale was torpedoed, and once again, Sam was saved by the HMS Legion of the British Royal Fleet. Finally, this seafaring feline retired to land and later died in 1955. Number 7, Nishidak. Have you ever turned around at your desk thinking someone just called your name? Or could you have sworn you heard someone say your name walking home alone at night in the dark? This has definitely happened to me, and it certainly makes me wonder whether there is a supernatural reason. Otherwise, why does almost every culture have a myth related to voices in the dark? The Nishidak from Hindu mythology is a dark entity that lures travelers deep into the forest areas by making it sound like a loved one is calling to them. This is the moment where curiosity could kill the cat, because if it got the better of you, you could end up dead. The voices will lead you to a deserted area away from prying eyes, and then snap, it will devour you. But what if it's actually someone I know who needs help? Well, there is one way to tell. Wait for them to call a third time. The Nishidak can only say your name twice, so if it no longer says it again, keep moving, as it is surely the Nishidak. Number 6, Nailbot. Part of the role that mythology plays is to establish rules and boundaries for society, especially children. If you don't want a young one playing by the river alone, you tell them a scary story about a monster who lives there, so they won't go near it. But did they really have to go this hard with this one? Damn! Nailbot is a terrifying, dark, demonic spirit that walks the streets visiting people's houses. Her name has been written on the doors and walls of small towns and villages in rural Bangalore to deter the spirit from entering. Some variations of the myth say that she is the spirit of a wandering bride seeking her husband. If you open the door to receive her, she will take the man of the house and bring bad luck to the household. Another version says, which is kind of where it gets confusing, says that should you open the door in the first place, you will be cursed to die within 24 hours. Apparently she speaks in the voices of your friends and family in order to appear more trustworthy. Villagers write her name on the door to ward her off, as they should. Number 5. Boba. I love all the legends that circulate sleep paralysis. If you have ever experienced it, you know how terrifying it can be. We know that it is a global phenomenon as most cultures around the world have lore surrounding it. The one that belongs to Indian mythology is the Boba. When people experience sleep paralysis, symptoms often include seeing shadowy figures, you're unable to move, there is pressure on your chest, pretty much having a nightmare while you're awake. The Boba is said to be a horrific creature who causes it. Made of shadows, the Boba's entity preys on those who sleep on their back. Very specific. So no side sleepers here. It strangles its victims to death while asleep, and it is said to be a paranormal explanation for sleep paralysis. So side sleepers, like me, you're safe. If you sleep on your back, you're in trouble. Number 4. Hiranyakshipu. Is it better to be feared or respected? Respected, obviously, that's what I think, because hopefully no one will be looking to stab you in the back if they're so afraid of you, you know what I mean? So it was only a matter of time for the self-proclaimed king of demons, his words, not anyone else's. Even his own son was like, nah dad. Even though he wasn't the one who did it, he wanted everyone to believe that he created the universe and that he was uncontrollable. His son was, of course, one of the ones who refused to take his belief. Not a good look for him, so he of course tried to kill his own son. No love when you're the king of demons apparently, but every time he tried to even harm his son, he walked out of it unscathed. The reason? Vishnu was protecting him the entire time. But how would they get rid of his father? Well, because he could not be killed by a human, deva, or animal, Vishnu created a blend of creatures creating something entirely different. It was called Narasimha, and one day at twilight he laid on the king of demons' lap and disemboweled him with his claws. I feel like the king of demons was like, ooh look, a kitty thing, oh no, and then died. Number 3. Alexander the Great. How did this guy exist? Was he the son of Zeus? The case is so convincing that even Alexander believed it himself. During the 15 years of his conquest, starting from his first victory when he was 18, Alexander never lost a battle. He was so prolific in battle that his strategies are still studied to this day. Before Alexander entered Egypt, they had been under Persian rule for just over 200 years. Through his incredible prowess and lightning-quick decision-making, Alexander defeated them. Egypt was so happy they even claimed him as their pharaoh. While he was in Egypt, however, Alexander decided to make the long trek to visit the shrine of Zeus Ammon. According to the man himself, he was guided there by ravens, and it even rained during his journey, which was interpreted as a blessing. When he got there, the priest named him a son of Zeus. Now, if that doesn't make this guy sound like a myth, then I don't know what will. Number 2. Boadicea. Boadicea is the Morrigan in my mind. She is Xena, warrior princess. This woman was so ferocious, she was called the scourge of the Roman Empire. Yeah, that's right, this queen took on the Roman Empire. At the time Rome was invading the south of Britain, Queen Boadicea ruled the Iceni tribe of East Anglia, along her husband King Prasutagus. Though her early days remain mostly a mystery, she remains among the canon of heroes who defended the British Isles. She was fearsome to behold, with flaming red hair and a gaze so sharp it could cut glass. She and her husband fought against the Romans until his death, after which the Romans drove straight to take her on. They attacked her daughters publicly, which, like Mother Bear, not a good idea, after which she toured in a chariot rallying the people in rebellion. She sacked 3 Roman cities and took no prisoners. She annihilated the 9th Legion when she took out their entire relief force. Sadly though, Boadicea fell after a vicious battle, but her name echoes in the halls of heroes. And last but not least, Richard, Saladin, and the Third Crusade. Just the Crusades in general are just unbelievable. Never in history have 2 rulers been so equally matched. Currently I'm reading Warriors of God, Richard the Lionheart and Saladin and the Third Crusade by James Rustin, and the fact that everything I've read so far isn't just the next Game of Thrones novel astounds me. These 2 never met because Saladin believed that kings should not go to war if they had met, but because they were fighting over the Holy Land, war was kind of inevitable. But while Saladin did not engage in warfare, Richard dove right in the middle of everything. They both had such incredible admiration for each other that in the middle of battle, battles, they would send each other gifts. Like, I don't understand. You killed my men. You killed my men. Here's a fruit basket. Literally happened. And another example, during the Battle of Jaffa, Richard's horse ended up being killed, and Saladin was so impressed with him that he sent him 2 new ones. 2! On top of that, Richard had taken off half of his armor before he had leapt ashore to fight. So he was like basically like half naked. Eventually Saladin tried to have him assassinated, but Richard was so ferocious in battle that everyone feared him. The dude was pretty much a human bulldozer. The 2 assassins ended up waking up the camp because they were fighting about who should take the guy out.
Number 10. Marathon. The Battle of Marathon took place in 490 BC during the first Persian invasion of Greece. It was fought between the citizens of Athens and Plateau together as one force to defend against the Persian army commanded by Datis and Artis Furnus. The battle was the culmination of the first attempt by Persia under King Darius I to subjugate Greece. The Greek army, the underdog in this, inflicted an embarrassing defeat on the many more Persians, marking a turning point in the Greco-Persian Wars. Roughly 25,000 Persians against 10,000 Greeks. I'm on Team Greece, because they're clearly the underdog here, and the victors. Also safe to say Greece's confidence skyrocketed after this victory. King Darius the Great and his army fled with their tails between their legs. This battle was a response to Athens and Greeks being done underneath Persian rule. Yeah, they're like, you know what, we're out, okay dude, we're done. So Darius the Great took great vengeance upon the Athenians, which didn't really work out so well for him. Number 9. Thermopylae. Cut to part 2 of the same series, the Battle of Thermopylae. This was fought 10 years later in 480 BC between the Persian Empire again, this time under Xerxes I and now Sparta under Leonidas I. Yeah, they were still pissed and wanted some more hands, so they came back. Basically, Greece's Navy SEALs decided to jump in this time. And the Greco-Persian Wars continued. Only lasted about 3 days, actually. Yeah, those Spartans, they're good. We're familiar with this tale as old as time. 300 Spartans held off like 300,000 Persians. Yeah, little more this time, they were definitely not bluff. But neither was the 900 Spartans and rebels. There was one path in, which was Thermopylae, and the Spartans did not let them by. You shall not pass! And they didn't. If you haven't seen 300, watch it. It's an amazing movie. Number 8. The Third Servile War. No, not the Civil War, the Servile War. Oh. AKA the Gladiator War. I'm Spartacus. No, I'm Spartacus. Okay, yeah, we get the reference, but who really was this guy? Well, he was a Thracian gladiator who, along with 4 others, was the escaped slave leaders in the Third Servile War, a major slave uprising against the Roman Republic. The third, actually. Yeah, people were pissed at slave labor. They were done. At first there was about 70 men, then that grew to an aggressive 120,000 escaped, trained, pissed off gladiator slaves. Yeah, that's absolutely terrifying. The Roman Senate's growing alarm about the continued military successes of this growing army led to Rome's army of 8 legions under the leadership of Marcus Licinius Crassus. With help of Pompey, of course, the war ended in 71 BC when, after a long and bitter fight, the Roman legions absolutely crushed them. Yeah, sorry Spartacus. He's a hero though. This rebellion is just one example of oppressed people fighting for their freedom against the oppressors. The Third Servile War was the last of the Servile Wars, and Rome would not see another slave uprising of this type again, as the impact had changed Rome forever.
Number 7. Nelly Bly. Nelly Bly is a woman right out of a Jules Verne novel. In fact, you would think so if she hadn't met the man himself. In 1889, Nelly Bly took on a record-breaking voyage by traveling around the world in just 72 days. Her means of travel included a train, a steamship, a rickshaw, horse, and donkey. Her goal was to beat the fictional record set by Verne's hero Phileas Fogg in his 80-day Odyssey. An event like this already appeared as a myth to the men of the time. Her editor at the New York World nearly refused to send her because her gender would make the trip impossible. No one but a man could do this, he told her. Very well, she replied. Start the man and I'll start the same day for some other newspaper and beat him. He backed down, and eventually Nelly was on her way, turning fiction into reality. Number 6. The Black Museum. No, I'm not talking about the Black Museum episode of Black Mirror, but honestly, not too far off. People have done some pretty vicious things to their enemies. There's a long list, but imagine turning your enemies into a permanent dinner guest. because that's exactly what Ferdinand I of Naples actually did. Though everyone thought he was going to be a great king, he actually ended up being pretty psychotic. He would invite his enemies over for dinner, and while they gorged on pheasant, he would take them out, either the old-fashioned way or literally throw them out of a window. He would then retrieve and dress the bodies and stage them. He called it his Black Museum and would invite new acquaintances to view it so they would know exactly who they were dealing with, so not to mess with him. What a psycho! Number 5, Sir Adrian Cotton de Walt. Love that name. There are going to be a couple unbelievable events on this list from World War II, so just a heads up. But truth be told, the war itself is kind of hard to believe. Sir Adrian Cotton de Wart was not only a man who survived the impossible once, but he made a career out of it. He wasn't like your Blackadder general in the back with a pipe. This dude was on the front lines tossing grenades with one arm because he already lost the other. He served in the Boer War, World War I, and World War II. He survived being shot in the face, skull, hip, leg, ankle, and ear. One eye and one arm short, this enthusiastic war hero dove into the bloodshed again and again. He was seen pulling pins out of grenades and throwing them with his one good arm during Battle of the Somme. But even as a 60-year-old man, he was still a beast. His plane got shot down in April 1941, he crashed it into the Mediterranean, survived, swam all the way to shore, then he got captured by Italian soldiers, thrown into a POW camp, then he escaped, eluded capture for 8 days, but unfortunately the lack of Italian looks gave him away. He was released 2 years later, and Churchill was such a big fan of him, he made him his rep over in China. He ended up passing away peacefully at age 83. Despite hundreds of close calls with death. Number 4, Simo Heiha. This is actually kind of a plug for a short film I'm looking to raise funds for. Check out my Instagram to learn more. But his story is incredible and it's so unbelievable. Simo Heiha's story sounds like something straight out of a movie, except it actually happened. A humble Finnish farmer who became the Soviets' nightmare in World War II. He is widely regarded as one of the most accomplished and skilled snipers in history. The Winter War began in Finland in 1939 after Russia decided that it was time to regain some territory. They thought it was going to be easy. But soon they came to fear the man who would be known as the White Death. He was trained as a sniper at a young age, didn't want to take human lives though, so he just became a farmer, but the lives of his countrymen were at stake. The Winter War lasted just over 100 days, and within that time, Simo hit as many as 500 men, his personal best being 40 confirmed hits in one day. Some people estimate that it was over 800 people. In March 1940, he was hit in the jaw by a counter sniper, leaving him in a coma for 11 days. But when he awoke, however, the Russians surrendered. That is poetic justice.
Number 3, Agincourt. The Battle of Agincourt was an English victory in the 100 Years' War. It took place October 25, 1415 in northern France. The unexpected English victory against the numerically superior French army boosted English morale and prestige while simultaneously crippling France. King Henry V of England led his troops into battle against King Charles VI of France, although he wasn't actually there, because he was a little cuckoo at the time. Yeah, couldn't really be trusted on the field. Lots of knights and swords and stuff, you know? That's all I gotta say. This battle is notorious for archers. They won this war, hands down. The Battle of Agincourt is one of England's most celebrated victories to date. It's a history in itself, as it forms the backdrop to William Shakespeare's play, Henry V. Number 2, Orleans. And again, cut to part 2 of the same 100 Years' War thing. The Siege of Orleans, aka Battle of Orleans, was fought October 1428 to May 1429. Again, between France and England. Yeah, they hated each other. From 1428 to 1429, it was the French Royal Army's first major military victory to follow their crushing defeat at Agincourt years earlier. A true grudge match. A young woman mounted on a white horse like a Valkyrie riding into Valhalla. 17-year-old Joan of Arc, the medium knight hybrid, chosen by God to lead the French to victory. Why aren't there like 38 movies about her? Like really? Under the Treaty of Troyes of 1420, England's Henry V became regent of France. By his treaty, Henry married Catherine, the daughter of the current French king Charles VI, and would then succeed to the French throne, cancelling out the Dauphin of France, also Charles. Oh yeah, the old switcheroo, huh? That chessboard of crowns, I tell you, just everywhere. Months of battles under the divine Joan led France to victory. The Dauphin crowned as King Charles VII of France, the hero, here being Joan, of course, who was later tried as a witch and hanged. The whole hearing God in your head thing kind of freaked people out. And coming in the number 1 spot, Gettysburg. A little bit of a time gap, but it's one of the most prolific and bloody battles to ever happen on this planet. The American Civil War, North versus South. The Battle of Gettysburg, 1863, the town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Union versus Confederate. Union Army led by General George Meade and Ulysses S. Grant defeated attacks by Confederate General Robert E. Lee's army, halting Lee's invasion to the north and retreat back down south. Yeah, just to throw some numbers at you here, about 650,000 Americans died due to this war. It's pretty disgusting, but necessary, as the North was reprimanding the South, ridding it, and standing up against its archaic and dehumanization ideologies. The two armies collided at Gettysburg 1863 as Lee and Meade took turns firing cannon after cannon at each other. Lee led his army on a torturous retreat back to Virginia after the loss, resulting between 45,000 and 60,000 soldiers from both armies perishing in just 3 days. The most costly in US history from battles. Safe to say Grant and Meade were the heroes, and Lee, well, definitely the villain. On November 19th, President Lincoln used the dedication ceremony for the Gettysburg National Cemetery to honor the fallen Union soldiers who gave their life fighting tirelessly for the freedoms of every American.